All right. Let's now take everything we discussed about the amending Act of 1781 and turn it into a great, deep, detailed summary, like the kind that gives you the whole picture in one place. I'll keep it very clear, step by step, but also in depth, so you'll feel like you completely understand this Act. The Amending Act of 1781. Detailed summary. Background. The Regulating Act of 1773 set up the Supreme Court at Calcutta. But soon, conflicts arose. The Supreme Court interfered in company administration. Judges used English law on Indians, often ignoring their religion and customs. Company officers were dragged to court even for actions done as part of their official job. This created confusion, clashes, and fear in governance. To fix these problems, the British Parliament passed the Amending Act of 1781, also called the Declaratory Act of 1781. Main provisions, what the Act did. 1. Protection for company officers. If company servants, like tax collectors, governors, judges, did something in their official duty, the Supreme Court could not punish them. This freed officials from harassment and allowed smoother governance. 2. Clear jurisdiction of Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's power was limited to Calcutta City. Outside Calcutta, it had no authority. This ended the confusion about whether the court could control all of Bengal. 3. Personal law of the defendant. The court had to apply the law of the accused person's religion, custom, Hindu, Hindu law, Muslim, Muslim law, Englishman, Europeans, English law. This respected diversity and reduced unfairness. 4. Respect for Indian customs. The Supreme Court had to respect Indian religious and social customs while enforcing judgments. The government also had to keep Indian traditions in mind while making new regulations. 5. Appeal structure. Appeals from provincial courts would go to the Governor-General in Council, the Governor-General and his council sitting as a final appellate body. Only in civil cases involving £5,000 or more could further appeal be made to the King in Council in London, Privy Council. 6. Governor-General's rules. Independent of Supreme Court. Earlier, new rules made by the Governor-General in Council had to be registered in the Supreme Court. The court could then declare them illegal if they clashed with English law. The 1781 Act removed this requirement. Supreme Court could not block or interfere with the Governor-General's regulations. Importance. Why it mattered. 1. Ended conflict. Reduced constant fights between the Supreme Court judges and company officials. 2. Balanced power. Drew clear lines. Supreme Court ignoring Calcutta, respecting customs. Company government calls free to administer without interference. 3. Respected Indian traditions. Hindus and Muslims were judged by their own laws, not by alien English law. 4. Efficient appeals. Created a clear ladder of appeals. Provincial courts, Governor-General in Council, King in Council for big civil cases. 5. Strengthened Governor-General. His rules could no longer be checked by the Supreme Court, giving him more independent power to govern. Simple case examples. Company officer, a tax collector seized crops as part of revenue collection. Earlier, he could be sued in Supreme Court. After 1781, he was safe if he acted in official capacity. Hindu family dispute, a property case between Hindus judged under Hindu inheritance law, not English law. Muslim marriage case, Muslim couple dispute judged under Muslim personal law. Big money civil case, merchants fight over £7,000 contract, appeal could go from Governor-General in Council all the way to London. Big picture. The Amending Act of 1781 was a remedial law. It corrected the mistakes of the Regulating Act of 1773. It made the Supreme Court less powerful, but more culturally sensitive. It protected company officials' power to the Governor-General. Religious laws and social customs, avoiding cultural clashes. It laid down a clear system of justice that was more predictable and organized. Sentence. The Amending Act of 1781 fixed the confusion of 1773 by clearly limiting the Supreme Court, protecting company officials, respecting Indian personal laws, organizing appeals, and strengthening the Governor-General's independence. Would you like me to now make a diagram flowchart version of this summary, with arrows and boxes, so you can see the whole Act at a glance for quick revision? Perfect. Let's now create a great, deep, detailed summary of the circumstances leading to Pitt's India Act 1784, in the simplest with full detail, so you can stand and remember everything easily. A detailed summary. Circumstance of Pitt's India Act 1784. 1. The background problem. The East India Company was ruling Bengal and other territories in India. But instead of governing well, it was failing badly. Huge corruption among officials. Conflict between the Supreme Court, judges, and the Governor-General's Council, executive rulers. Costly wars, especially with the Marathas, drained resources. The company became financially bankrupt and kept begging the British Parliament for loans. Britain realised the company is too weak and irresponsible to rule India alone. Parliament must interfere. Number 2. Committees to investigate. In 1781, just like in 1772, Parliament appointed a select committee to study the conflict between the Supreme Court and the Council in Bengal. A secret committee to study the Maratha War and why it was so badly handled. Both committees wrote huge reports exposing the company's mismanagement. These reports became weapons for politicians to attack the company in Parliament. The reports made it clear the company could not be trusted with ruling India. Number 3. Company admits bankruptcy. The Court of Directors, company's managers in London, admitted the truth. The Maratha War had ruined them. They needed another loan of £1 million from the British government. For Parliament, this was the final proof. If we keep giving you money, we must also control your rule in India. Like a friend who keeps borrowing money, eventually you decide to control his spending. Number 4. Fox's India Bill, 1783. Charles James Fox, with help from Edmund Burke and Philip Francis, introduced a radical plan. His bill proposed a board of 7 commissioners, chosen by Parliament, later King, would take over all political and military powers of the company. 9 assistant directors, chosen by Parliament, later company shareholders, would manage trade, commercial matters. Meaning, the company would lose political power and become only a trading body. Example, a school takes away the student council's authority and gives it to 2 new committees chosen by the school board. Number 5. Why Fox's bill failed. The opposition, led by William Pitt, attacked the bill strongly. Main criticism: it handed the patronage job-giving power of India to the ministry or the king. This meant British ministers could appoint all officials in India, looked like a political power grab. Pitt thundered, "This is not reform, this is tyranny." Result: bill passed in the House of Commons, lower house, but rejected in the House of Lords because King George III opposed it. The Fox-North coalition government resigned. For the first time in British history, a government in London fell over an Indian issue. Number 6. Pitt steps in, 1784. William Pitt the Younger became Prime Minister. He too wanted reform, but he was cleverer than Fox. He avoided seizing patronage, the job-giving power. He first won over the company, making sure they wouldn't resist. He promised a system of control, not fixed powerful men. His famous line, "Fox's bill gave permanency of men, specific commissioners. My bill gives permanency of system, lasting state control regardless of individuals." Number 7. Pitt's India Bill, introduced in January 1784, first attempt failed. With more political strength, he reintroduced it in May 1784. Finally passed. Commons, July 1784. Lords, August 1784. This became the Pitt's India Act, 1784, which created the Board of Control in London to supervise the company. Core understanding: why reform? Company was broke, corrupt, fighting in Bengal and losing wars. Fox's Bill 1783, too radical, wanted full takeover, failed because it seemed like a power grab. Pitt's Bill 1784, smarter, softer, system-focused, left patronage untouched, gained company support, succeeded. One-sentence super summary. Because the East India Company was financially ruined, mismanaging India and losing wars, Parliament tried reform. Fox's harsh plan failed as a power grab, but Pitt's balanced system, without seizing patronage, succeeded in 1784, leading to Pitt's India Act. Would you like me to now make a visual, story-style timeline chart, like a step-by-step journey from company misrule, Fox's bill, failure, Pitt's success, so you can revise the whole thing in 60 seconds? Perfect. Let's now create a deep, detailed summary of the provisions of Pitt's India Act 1784 in the simplest and clearest way possible, like a full recap story covering everything we just learned. Great deep detailed summary of the provisions of the Act of 1784. 1. Focus of the Act. The Act mainly changed the company's home government in London, its headquarters, not India directly. The British government wanted more control over India's administration, but without completely destroying the East India Company. 2. Government control extended. The Act strengthened the power of the British state Parliament plus King over the company's activities. Earlier, the company was too independent. Now it had to follow London's orders on all important matters. 3. Patronage untouched. Patronage equals power to give jobs and appointments. Pitt's Act left this power with the company. This made the Act acceptable to the company's shareholders because they still controlled who got loots in India. Nav 4. The Board of Control. The biggest change, creation of the Board of Control. This board would control all civil, laws and administration, military, wars and army, revenue, money, land tax, trade revenue, matters of India. Members of the board. 1. Chancellor of the Exchequer, Finance Minister of Britain. 2. One of the principal secretaries of state, a top minister. 3. 4 Privy Council members, royal advisers appointed by the king. This meant that India's key policies were now in the hands of top British political leaders, not just businessmen of the company. Number 5. The Secret Committee. A secret committee of 3 directors from the East India Company was created. Its role, act as a private channel for important and confidential orders from the Board of Control to India. Purpose, keep delicate matters like war decisions or diplomacy quick and secret without the whole company knowing in advance. 6. Weakening of the Court of Proprietors. Earlier, the Court of Proprietors shareholders' meeting had the power to cancel or block resolutions made by the company's directors. But under the Act, if the directors' decisions were approved by the Board of Control, shareholders could not cancel or overturn them. This took away one of the last big powers of the shareholders. Nari 7. Chain of command after the Act. Board of Control, British government, makes major policies. Secret Committee of Directors, company, acts as messenger and keeps secrecy. Court of Directors, company's managers, carry out the orders. Governor-General and Council in India, implement on the ground. In short, government decides what must be done, company decides who will do it. 8. What changed? Summary table. Before 1784, after 1784. Company directors had big policy power. Board of Control took over policy, civil, military, revenue. Shareholders could overturn decisions. Shareholders lost this power if board approved. No quick channel for secret orders. Secret committee created for fast, private orders. Company had patronage plus still kept patronage, so they were satisfied. 9. The Act was a compromise. Control over policies, war, money, administration. Company kept control over jobs, so it remained influential and wealthy. It made the British cabinet responsible for India's governance. It marked a major step towards British government gradually taking over India completely, which finally happened in 1858. Ultra-simple memory key. Board of Control's policy. Company equals patronage. This summary shows clearly how Pitt's India Act worked. It tightened government control, but left company shareholders a piece of the cake, jobs. Would you like me to now make a visual diagram/flowchart showing the power structure before and after the Act, so you can revise it in just one look? Perfect. Let me now give you a deep, detailed, step-by-step summary of what you just did, but in the simplest words, as if I am retelling a story. I'll make it flow smoothly so you see the whole picture clearly. Deep, detailed summary of the Act, 1784-1793. Nuf 1. India. After Pitt's India Act, 1784, the chief ruler in India was the Governor-General. But he was not alone. He had a council of 3 members to help him make decisions. Together, they ran in India. Power balance in 1784, Governor-General versus Council. Normally, decisions were made by voting between the Governor-General and his 3 councillors. That means 4 votes total, Governor plus 3. If the Governor had just 1 councillor supporting him, then the vote became 2 versus 2, a tie. In a tie, the Governor had a casting vote, an extra deciding vote. This meant, with just one supporter, the Governor-General could push through his own decision. So the governor was quite powerful, but still not totally supreme. 3. The problem that remained, weakness in 1784 Act. If all 3 councillors united against the governor, then the vote was 3 versus 1. In this case, the governor lost, so technically the council could still overrule him. This was seen as a defect, weak point in the 1784 system. 4. Fix in 1793 Act. The Act of 1793 gave a new power. The Governor-General could now ignore the council's majority if he wanted. He could go ahead with his own decision, even if all councillors opposed him. But there was a condition. He had to record his decision in writing, showing that the council disagreed. He had to accept full responsibility for the outcome. This made the Governor-General the true supreme authority, but also made him personally accountable. 5. Subordinate Bombay. India had 3 main British, Bengal, Madras and Bombay. The 1784 Act made Bengal Governor-General and Council the master presidency. Madras and Bombay had to follow Bengal in 1. Diplomacy, foreign relations, treaties with Indian rulers. 2. Revenue, big financial tax matters. 3. War, military decisions. So Bengal became the central command, and the other presidencies were junior branches. 6. Council membership reform. Only covenanted servants, trained company officials with formal contracts, could now be members of the Governor-General's Council. Why? Because earlier, when outsiders were appointed, it had caused disasters. They lacked proper training. They made poor decisions. Some were corrupt. So now, only professional company men could sit in the council, ensuring stability, order and professionalism. Final picture. 1784 Act. Governor-General plus 3 councillors equals top government. Governor could win decisions with just 1 ally, casting vote. Madras and Bombay subordinated to Bengal in diplomacy, revenue and war. Only trained company servants allowed in council. 2. 1793 Act. Correction. Governor-General could now override the whole council if he formally recorded it and took responsibility. This made him the real supreme power in India. One-line memory aids. Casting vote gave governor edge in 1784. 1793 equals governor supreme but responsible. Bengal boss, Madras and Bombay obey. Council equals only company professionals, no outsiders. In short, the Acts of 1784 and 1793 gradually shifted Indian administration into the hands of a strong, centralized Governor-General in Bengal, backed by a professional council, but made him accountable for his actions. Would you like me to now create a comic strip version of this summary, like we did earlier for 1781, showing 1. Casting vote in 1784, 2. 1793 override power, 3. Bengal bossing Madras and Bombay, 4. Only company officers allowed? Perfect. Now let's create a great, deep, detailed summary of Pitt's India Act of 1784 observations in the simplest, clearest language possible. Deep, detailed summary of Pitt's India Act, 1784. Now 1. Why the Act was made. The East India Company was ruling large parts of India, but often made selfish, corrupt or dangerous decisions. The British Parliament, the real government of England, feared that if the company mismanaged India, it would harm Britain too. So in 1784, the Prime Minister William Pitt the Younger passed this law to bring the company under tighter government control. As the 2, the biggest change, Board of Control. A new department was created in London called the Board of Control. Its main job, supervise and control the company's political and military decisions. This meant the company could not act independently in important matters. However, the board did not run India directly. It worked in the background, shaping decisions. 3. The dual system of government. After this act, India was governed under a 2-headed system. 1. The company, court of directors, still managed trade, fired its servants, and sent official letters. 2. The Board of Control, parliamentary board, checked all policies related to law, war revenue, and administration. This arrangement is called the dual system because 2 authorities shared power, the company in appearance, the government in reality. It lasted until 1858, when the British Crown took over India directly. Hab 4. How the Board of Control worked. It could read all company documents and had to approve all official instructions to India, except purely trade-related ones. In urgent situations, the board could even write its own draft orders and get them signed by a secret group of company directors, called the Secret Committee. Thus, the company looked like it was giving orders, but the real power was with the British government. Its authority was veiled, hidden. The company appeared in charge, but the government controlled from behind the curtain. Now 5. What the company kept. The Court of Directors still had patronage, the right to give jobs and dismiss employees. It continued to handle trade, finance, and internal matters. This way, the company was not stripped of all powers. It still looked like a powerful body, but was now closely monitored. Number 6. Leadership of the board. Initially, one of the British Secretaries of State headed the board as an extra duty, without extra pay. But from 1793, a special president of the board was appointed. This president gradually became the real authority over Indian affairs in London. In 1858, after the revolt of 1857, this office was placed by the Secretary of State for India, who directly represented the Crown. Number 7. Overall result. Pitt's India Act of 1784 set the basic framework for how India was ruled for the next 74 years, 1784 to 1858. The company still existed, but the British government now had the final say in military matters. India's administration became a joint effort, outwardly by the company, secretly by the government. This was a halfway step between the company's private rule and the direct rule of the Crown after 1858. Key points to remember. 1. Board of Control to supervise the company. 2. Dual system of government, company both ruled. 3. Board checked all non-trade policies, had secret emergers. 4. Company still gave jobs and handled trade. 5. President of the board became the main authority until 1858. 6. Act fixed the main lines of governance between company and government until Crown takeover. Very simple analogy. Imagine a driver, company, steering a bus called India. After this act, a policeman, Board of Control, sat beside him. The driver could still press the pedals and steer, but the policeman controlled the route, told him where to go, and even grabbed the wheel in emergencies. Eventually, in 1858, the policeman himself became the driver. So, the Pitt's India Act, 1784, didn't remove the company completely. It clipped its wings, put it under Parliament's watch, and made sure that Britain's national interest, not just company profits, guided India's governance. Would you like me to also make a diagram/flowchart, like a picture map of who controlled what, so you can see the dual system clearly? Perfect. Let's now build a great, deep, detailed summary of this passage, but in the simplest words possible so you fully understand it and can even explain it to others. Great, deep, detailed summary of this passage. Pitt's India Act, 1784, Provisions and Nature. 1. Smaller Executive Council, decision-making team. The Governor-General of Bengal had an Executive Council, a team of advisors. Earlier it was bigger, 6 members. Now it was reduced to 3 members. 1 seat was fixed for the Commander-in-Chief, the Army head. This meant fewer members, decisions were quicker. Military matters always got considered. The Governor-General, with support from just 1 member, could usually control the decisions, because of his casting vote. Importance. The Governor-General became stronger in practice. India's administration became more centralized and military-minded. Madras and Bombay councils also changed. The system in Bengal became a model. Councils in Madras and Bombay were also restructured in the same way. So now uniformity was introduced in the company's rule across India. Importance. India's administration moved closer to a centralized system, under Bengal as the headquarters. 3. Ban on aggressive wars and political deals. The Act made a clear declaration. No more aggressive wars. Company cannot fight wars just to conquer. No more treaties of guarantee. Company cannot promise to protect local rulers like the Nawabs of Carnatic and Oud. Why? Britain wanted to show it was not greedy for land. It claimed conquest and expansion were against the honour and policy of Britain. Importance. On paper, Britain looked moral and just. It wanted to show that it was not here to snatch land, only to maintain order. 4. Reality. Promise was broken. The company and the British government did not follow this declaration. They actually kept expanding their political and territorial control. Example, later wars, like against Mysore Marathas, showed that Britain was still pursuing conquest. Importance. This shows the gap between law, theory, and practice, reality. 5. A clever political compromise. The Act was very skillfully drafted by Pitt, Prime Minister of Britain. It was a compromise between Parliament and the company. Parliament, through the Board of Control, got to control political matters. The company, through the Court of Directors, kept control over commerce and patronage, jobs, appointments. Importance. Both sides got something. Government gained power without looking like it had destroyed the company. Has number 6. Praise for Pitt's political skill. Even Edmund Burke, a critic of the company, admitted the Act was brilliantly designed. Pitt was careful. He did not give all power to the king, so nobody could accuse him of helping the monarchy grab jobs, patronage. He avoided making it look like the company was totally destroyed, so there was no public backlash. Importance. The Act shows how British politics worked by balancing interests. Pitt managed to reform without creating rebellion in Britain. Overall meaning. The Pitt's India Act, 1784, was a law that made the Governor-General stronger. Tried, at least on paper, to stop wars and unfair treaties. But in reality, the British continued expanding. It was a compromise. Britain got more political control, but the company was not fully stripped of its powers. It was cleverly designed to avoid political backlash in England. Key takeaways, one-liners. 1. Smaller councils equals quicker decisions, more power to Governor-General. 2. Madras and Bombay made to follow Bengal's pattern, centralisation. 3. Ban on wars and treaties, Britain claimed moral high ground. 4. Promise broken, British still expanded. 5. Clever compromise, shared control between Parliament and company. 6. Pitt avoided angering both monarchy critics and company supporters. So, in short, the Act of 1784 gave more central power to the Governor-General, tried to limit the company's political adventures, but in practice expansion continued. It was a clever political compromise that let Britain control India more directly without destroying the company's role. Would you like me to now also make a visual chart diagram like a one-page summary map that shows council changes, ban on wars, promise versus reality, political compromise, Parliament versus company? Perfect. Now that I have explained line by line in simplest form, let me now give you a great deep detailed summary of the Amending Act of 1781. I'll make it clear step by step, structured and with extra details so you fully understand it like a master. Deep detailed summary of the Amending Act 1781. 1. Why was it needed? The Regulating Act of 1773 created a Governor-General in Council, the government, and a Supreme Court at Calcutta. But it did not clearly say how much power the court had, how much power the government had. This caused constant clashes between the court and the Governor-General. People of India suffered because they didn't know whose orders to follow. Example, imagine a city where both the police chief and the judge order people differently. Citizens are confused and scared. So, the British Parliament passed the Amending Act of 1781 to remove this confusion. 2. Main purpose. The purpose was to define powers clearly, what the Supreme Court could do, what the Governor-General in Council could do. It was basically about separating law courts from government administration. Provisions of the Act. Here are the most important parts. Supreme Court's powers defined. Earlier, the court was interfering in government work. Now, the Act said, the Supreme Court cannot question or stop the Governor-General and Council in matters of revenue, taxation or political decisions. The court should only handle cases and disputes. Example, if the Governor-General orders collect tax from farmers, the court cannot stop it. The court can only judge if a farmer has a legal complaint against another farmer. Chat B. Jurisdiction of the court. Area of power. The court's jurisdiction was extended to all people living in Calcutta, not just the British. But the court had to respect Indian personal laws. For Hindus, follow Hindu laws. For Muslims, follow Islamic Quranic laws. For Europeans, follow English law. Example, Hindu family inheritance decided by Hindu law. Muslim marriage dispute decided by Islamic law. English merchant trade dispute decided by English law. This avoided confusion and injustice, because earlier British judges were applying only English laws, which didn't fit Indian traditions. See first step towards separation of powers. For the first time in India, there was an attempt to separate. Executive, government, handled ruling and administration. Judiciary, courts, handled justice. This is very important because today in all modern democracies, India, USA, UK, this separation of powers is the foundation of governance. Q4. Significance. Why is it important? 1. Removed confusion. Clear boundary between court and government. 2. Protected Indian traditions. Hindus got Hindu law, Muslims got Islamic law. 3. Step towards modern system. Introduced the principle of separation between executive and judiciary. 4. Better governance. Allowed the Governor-General to focus on administration without constant interference from the court. 5. Improved justice. People of Calcutta now had clarity about which court rules applied to them. #5. Limitations. The Act only solved some problems. Many issues between the British courts and Indian society continued later, but it was still an improvement compared to the Regulating Act of 1773. Final simplified recap. The Amending Act of 1781 was passed to fix the mistakes of the Regulating Act of 1773. It said, Supreme Court, only deal with legal disputes, not government work. Governor-General, run the administration, collect revenue, manage politics. Court, respect Hindu and Muslim laws in personal matters. Importance, first step in India towards separating government from courts. Think of it like this. The Regulating Act 1773 built a house, but the walls were shaky and the rooms were mixed up. The Amending Act 1781 came and fixed the walls, separated the rooms, court versus government, and made it more stable. Would you like me to now create a visual diagram, flowchart, story-style picture that shows government on one side, court on the other side, and how Hindus, Muslims, Europeans went to different laws? That will make it crystal clear visually. Perfect. Let's now take everything we just broke down line by line and make it into a deep, detailed, but still super simple summary. This way you'll get the big picture of Pitt's India Act of 1784. Great, deep, detailed summary of Pitt's India Act 1784. 1. Background. Why was this act needed? The East India Company started as a trading company, but slowly began ruling Indian territories. By the late 1700s, the company had political power, collecting taxes, ruling provinces like Bengal; military power, its own army; business power, trade in spices, textiles, tea, etc. This mix caused confusion and corruption. The Regulating Act of 1773 tried to fix it, but failed because it didn't clearly divide power between the company and the British government. The Supreme Court and the Governor-General often clashed. The company still acted freely and made mistakes. In the early 1780s, the company lost badly in wars, like with the Marathas, showing its weak governance. Britain realized, if we don't take stronger control, we might lose India. 2. Main idea of the Pitt's India Act, 1784. The Act was designed to tighten Britain's control over the company. It created a joint government system, shared rule. The East India Company continued trade and daily administration. The British Crown government took control of important political and military decisions. In short, company equal business and local running, Crown equals final political authority. Lashnasha 3. Key provisions, what the Act said. 1. Board of Control created. A new body in Britain called the Board of Control was set up. Members, 6 people, including British government ministers. Job, supervise company's political work, war, peace, foreign relations. This made sure Britain directly influenced India's politics. Example, like a teachers' committee watching over a naughty student who was mismanaging his project. 2. Court of Directors kept, but limited. The company's old bosses, the Court of Directors, still managed trade and money. But they could no longer act freely in political matters. For politics, they had to follow instructions from the Board of Control. Example, shopkeepers still sell goods, but for any town rules, like police or military, they must obey the mayor. 3. Governor-General of Bengal became stronger. Bengal was the company's main base in India. The Governor-General of Bengal in Calcutta became the most powerful official. Other presidencies, Bombay and Madras, were made subordinate to Bengal in political matters. This helped create a centralized government system in India. Example, think of Bengal as the head office, and Bombay and Madras as branch offices that must follow orders from head office. 4. Dual control, joint government system. From 1784, two masters ruled India. 1. The company for business and administration. 2. The British Crown for politics and big decisions. But the Crown had the final authority. Example, 2 drivers steering a cart, but the main reins were in the hands of the Crown. 5. Separation of functions. For the first time, the Act clearly separated commercial work, trade, profit-making, company's job, political work, war, governance, foreign policy, Crown's supervision. Example, a shopkeeper is told, sell your goods, make money, but if you try to act like a policeman or king, I will control you. 4. Importance of the Act. Solved problems of 1773 Act. The confusion of the Regulating Act was reduced. Step towards British Raj. Though the company still existed, Britain now had real control over Indian politics. Centralization of power. Bengal Governor-General became supreme over Bombay and Madras, starting the trend of unifying India under one central authority. Crown's dominance. Even though dual control was the system, the Crown clearly had more power than the company. Foundation for future control. This act laid the base for Britain to eventually abolish the company in 1858 and take full control. Nav 5. Ultra-simple one-line summary. The Pitt's India Act of 1784 was Britain's way of saying to the East India Company, keep trading and earning money, but when it comes to ruling India, I will watch you closely, control your politics and have the final word. So Pitt's India Act equals dual control, company for trade, Crown for politics. Crown always wins in the end. Would you like me to now make a visual diagram flowchart, showing this dual control system and how powers were divided? That way you'll see it like a map. Alright, let's now build a full, deep, detailed summary of these provisions of Pitt's India Act 1784, but still in the simplest language possible, so you get a crystal clear picture of what it really did. Pitt's India Act 1784, detailed summary. The Pitt's India Act of 1784 was passed by the British Parliament to improve the way India was being governed. The East India Company was still ruling India in name, but the British Crown wanted to control it more closely because the company was becoming corrupt and irresponsible, especially in matters of war, money, and administration. The Act brought big changes. Establishment of the Board of Control. A new body of 6 people called the Board of Control was created in Britain. It was led by the Secretary of State, an important government minister. This board had power over all political, military, and revenue matters in India. It represented the British Crown, the King's government. Meaning, the British government now officially took charge of the political side of ruling India. The company could not act freely anymore in important matters. Dual control, company plus Crown. The company was still represented by its court of directors, business managers. The Crown was represented by the new Board of Control. So, both the company and the government had to work together to make decisions. Example, imagine a shop run by its owner's company, but the government sends inspectors Board of Control to watch and guide the shop. Both have to agree on big decisions. Strengthening the Governor-General in India. The Governor-General, based in Calcutta, Bengal, became more powerful. His Council of Advisers was reduced from 4 members to 3. One of the 3, the Commander-in-Chief, head of the British in India. If the council was divided in opinion, the Governor-General had a casting vote, meaning his and his decision would be final. Effect: the Governor-General could now control the administration more easily and could not be overruled by too many advisers. He became the strongest single authority in India under the company. Now, reduction of powers of Bombay and Madras. Earlier, Bombay and Madras governors had some independence to make their own decisions. This act took away those independent powers. Now, in matters of war, revenue and foreign policy, the Calcutta Presidency, Governor-General, had supreme control. Effect: India was now governed in a centralized way, with Bengal, Calcutta, as the headquarters. Measures against corruption. All civil and military officials of the East India Company had to declare all their property in India. This was to check whether they were making money by unfair means, bribes, private trade, gifts. Strict punishment was provided for corruption and dishonesty. Effect: the British wanted to stop their officers from looting India privately and ensure loyalty to the company and crown. Overall importance. 1. This act clearly showed that the British government, not just the East India Company, now had real control over Indian affairs. 2. It made the Governor-General of Bengal the most powerful official in India, centralizing authority. 3. It reduced corruption by forcing officials to declare property. 4. It ended the full independence of Bombay and Madras, making Calcutta the center of British power. 5. It was a big step in the transition of India from being ruled by a trading company to being ruled directly by the British Crown, which officially happened later in 1858. In one simple sentence, Pitt's India Act 1784 created a board of control in Britain to supervise India, made the Governor-General stronger in Calcutta, reduced the freedom of Bombay and Madras, and ordered officers to declare their property to reduce corruption, shifting real power from the East India Company to the British government. Do you want me to now create a visual diagram or chart showing how power shifted before versus after the Act? That way you can see the change in a single glance. Perfect. Let's now make a great, deep, detailed summary of the assessment of Pitt's India Act 1784. I will not just summarize, but also explain the why, how and results so you get the full picture. Detailed summary of the assessment of Pitt's India Act 1784. 1. Why this act was important. The earlier Regulating Act of 1773 was Britain's first big attempt to control the East India Company's rule in India. But it failed. Confusion, conflicts, slow decision-making. So Pitt's India Act 1784 was passed to fix those problems. What the Act achieved. Positives. 1. Removed some faults of 1773 Act. It tried to make administration more efficient and reduce conflicts. It gave a clearer link between the British government in London and the company in India. 2. Control through the Board of Control. A new body, the Board of Control, was created in Britain. This meant the Governor-General in India and his council were not independent anymore. They were supervised by the British government. Thus, the Crown, King Parliament, had indirect control over India. 3. Governor-General made supreme. Before 1784, governors of Bombay and Madras sometimes acted independently. This caused confusion and even risky wars. The Act made the Governor-General of Bengal the supreme authority. Bombay and Madras were made subordinate to him. 4. Simplified Governor-General's Council. The council was reduced from 4 members to 3 members. This made decision-making faster and smoother. In case of a tie, the Governor-General had the casting vote, meaning he became the real head. Together, these measures seemed like strong improvements. Why the Act was a failure. Negatives. 1. Confusion in division of powers. The Act divided powers between 3 groups: Board of Control, British Government; Court of Directors, company bosses in London; Governor-General in Council, administration in India, but their roles were not clearly defined. Everyone had partial control, constant clashes and delays. 2. Unclear boundaries. The Act did not make rules in an objective, clear, measurable way. Instead, the powers were subjective, open to interpretation. So each side interpreted the law differently, leading to confusion. 3. Accusations of nepotism. The Board of Control was accused of favoritism, giving jobs to relatives and friends instead of capable people. This weakened trust in the system. 4. Still no full responsibility. Although the British government now had indirect control, it didn't to take full direct responsibility. He still had big powers. So the dual system, government plus company, continued, and the confusion remained. 4. Larger impact. The Act showed that the British government was slowly moving towards taking direct control of India. It also showed that Britain was beginning to feel responsible for the welfare of Indian people, humanitarian concerns. However, because of vagueness and power struggles, it is remembered as a half-success, half-failure. Later acts, like the Charter Acts and finally the 1858 Act after the revolt, had to go further to fully establish British government's direct rule. Final deep detailed summary, in short sentences for clarity. Pitt's India Act of 1784 tried to correct mistakes of the 1773 Act. It made the Board of Control in London to supervise the company. It made the Governor-General of Bengal supreme over Bombay and Madras. It reduced the Governor-General's Council to 3 members, making him stronger. But it failed because the division of powers between government, company and Governor-General was unclear. Boundaries of authority were vague. The Board of Control was accused of nepotism. Still, the Act marked a step towards greater British government involvement in India. Overall, it was an improvement over 1773, but still a weak and incomplete solution. Would you like me to now create a visual diagram, flowchart, showing how powers were divided among Board of Control, Court of Directors and Governor-General under Pitt's Act? That way you can see the confusion clearly.
Perfect. Now let's take everything we unpacked and turn it into a great, deep, and detailed summary of the Act of 1786, written in the simplest possible way. The Act of 1786, deep and simple summary. 1. Background. Before 1786, the Governor-General of Bengal had to work with a council. The council often slowed things down or blocked the Governor-General. India had wars, rebellions, and crises that needed fast decisions. Britain wanted a strong, trusted man to run India. That man was Lord Cornwallis, but he agreed to come only if he got special powers. 2. What Cornwallis demanded. Cornwallis said, 1. I want to be both the Governor-General, head of civil government, and the Commander-in-Chief, head of the army. Why? To avoid conflicts between civil and military leaders. 2. I want the right to override my council in extraordinary, emergency cases, but I will take full responsibility if things go wrong. Why? To act fast when there is no time for debate. 3. What the Act of 1786 did. The Act was passed in the British Parliament and granted both demands. Cornwallis could wear 2 hats, civil ruler plus military chief. He had a special override power. In emergencies, he could act alone, but had to own the consequences. 4. What extraordinary cases meant: sudden war threats, enemy invasion, sudden rebellions, urgent treaties or deals that would expire, severe financial crisis. In such cases, Cornwallis could skip debate, act quickly, and later answer for it. 5. Why this was important. It made the Governor-General's office stronger, gave India a unified leadership, no split between civil and military, allowed quick decisions in emergencies, ensured responsibility. He could not misuse it casually. 6. What Cornwallis did with these powers. He cleaned up administration, stopped corruption, paid officials good salaries, insisted on merit. He reformed justice, built courts, made the Cornwallis Code, 1793. He reformed land revenue, made the permanent settlement in Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. He disciplined the army and aligned it with government policies. All this was possible because he had clear, strong authority from the Act. 7. The limitations. He could not override the council every day, only in extraordinary cases. He was still answerable to the Board of Control in London. Britain still supervised. He was not a king. 8. Essence in one line. The Act of 1786 made Lord Cornwallis both the top civil and military boss of India and gave him emergency powers to act alone, but with full responsibility. 9. Memory trick. 2 hats plus 1 button. 2 hats equals Governor-General plus Commander-in-Chief. 1 button, emergency override. Fast, united, accountable. Fast decisions. United command. Accountable leader. So the Act of 1786 was small in words but big in impact. It turned the Governor-Generalship into a powerful office and helped Cornwallis introduce reforms that shaped British rule in India for decades. Would you like me to now create by-step story flowchart, like a simple picture story in words? Before 1786, demands, the Act, results, so you can remember it at one glance forever? Perfect. Let me now give you a deep, very detailed summary of the Charter Act of 1793, in the simplest words possible, as if I'm teaching a total beginner step by step. The Charter Act of 1793, deep, detailed summary. 1. Companies' trade rights continued. The East India Company, EIC, had a special right. It was the only company allowed to trade with India, a monopoly. In 1793, the British Parliament decided, okay, company, you can keep this monopoly for 20 more years. That means no other British company or person could trade directly with India until at least 1813. Example: imagine your father gives you the exclusive right to sell mangoes in the whole town. Nobody else is allowed to sell mangoes. And in 1793, he says, you can keep this right for 20 more years. 2. Cornwallis's special power, now given to all future governors. Earlier, in 1786, Governor-General Cornwallis was given a special power. If there was a very urgent matter, he could ignore his council's advice and make a decision by himself. In 1793, this was made permanent for all future governors-general and governors. So now, any governor-general or governor could use this override power in emergencies. Example: imagine in your school, only the old principal was allowed to take urgent decisions without asking the teachers. Now the rule changes. Every new principal will always have that power. 3. Governor-General made stronger over Bombay and Madras. India had 3 big centers of British rule: Bengal, main center, under the Governor-General; Bombay, under its own governor; Madras, under its own governor. The Act clearly said, Governor-General of Bengal is the boss of Bombay and Madras. So, Bombay and Madras governors had to follow Bengal's Governor-General. Example: think of a company with 3 branches. The head office, Bengal, gets total power, and the branch offices, Bombay, Madras, must follow head office orders. 4. When Governor-General is away from Bengal, if the Governor-General leaves Bengal, someone must run the office. The Act said he must appoint a vice president from his council, only from civilian members, not the army. This vice president will act as Governor-General until he returns. Example: if your father, who runs a shop, goes out of town, he leaves the shop in charge of your elder brother. 5. When Governor-General visits Bombay or Madras, if the Governor-General himself goes to Bombay or Madras, he becomes their direct boss. The local governor of Bombay or Madras must step aside and let the Governor-General take full control while he is there. Example: if the owner of a company visits a branch, the branch manager must step down and the owner himself runs the branch until he leaves. 6. Commander-in-Chief, not automatically in council. Before this, sometimes the Commander-in-Chief, the top military officer, was automatically a member of the Governor-General's council. But now, the Act said, he is not automatically included. If they want him, they must appoint him separately. Example: in a school committee, earlier the sports captain was always part of the main decision team. Now the rule says he won't be part of it unless invited. 7. Changes in the Home Government, Board of Control. Back in England, the Board of Control supervised the company's political affairs. The Act made some changes. The first, top commissioner would be called the president of the Board of Control. The 2 junior members of the board no longer needed to be part of the King's Privy Council, an advisory body. This gave the Board of Control more independence. Example: imagine a parent committee controlling a school. Now they say, the head of the committee is officially called president, and the helpers don't need to be part of some old royal group. And 8. Salaries to be paid from Indian revenues. The salaries of Board of Control members were earlier paid from the British Treasury, the state's money. The Act changed this. Now, their salaries would be paid from Indian revenues, the money collected in India through taxes, trade, etc. This system continued till 1919. Example: imagine teachers of a school in London start getting paid not from London's funds, but from the money collected from a branch school in India. Why this Act is important. 1. It extended companies' trade monopoly. Companies still controlled all trade with India. 2. It made the Governor-General much stronger than Bombay and Madras governors. 3. It made sure future governors had emergency powers like Cornwallis. 4. It showed clearly that India's money was being used for Britain's administration. Super simple final summary in one line. The Charter Act of 1793 kept the East India Company's trade monopoly, gave more power to the Governor-General, especially over Bombay and Madras, made Cornwallis's special powers permanent, adjusted the Board of Control, and started paying British officials in London with Indian money. Would you like me to also make a comic-style step-by-step story version of this act, like principal, branch managers, shopkeeper examples in a comic strip style? That might make it even more fun and unforgettable. Perfect. Let's now make a great, deep, detailed summary of the Amending Act of 1786 in the simplest way possible, so even if you know nothing, you will understand everything clearly. Summary of the Amending Act of 1786. 1. Who made the Act? The British Parliament passed this law in 1786. It was made especially for Lord Cornwallis, who had just been sent to India as Governor-General. 2. Why was it made? Normally, a Governor-General had to work together with his Council of Advisors in India. But sometimes, the council members disagreed too much, which slowed down important decisions. Britain wanted a strong, clear, and powerful head in India to manage things quickly. So this act gave Cornwallis extra powers, beyond the normal Governor-General powers. 3. What powers were given? Double role. 2 hats. Cornwallis was allowed to act as both. 1. Governor-General, head of administration in India. 2. Commander-in-Chief, head of the army in India. Example. Imagine a cricket team where one person is both the captain and the coach at the same time. That is how Cornwallis was. He had control over both the government and the military. Power to override council. Normally, the Governor-General had to listen to the council, and if most members disagreed, he could not act. But now, Cornwallis was given the right to ignore the council's majority opinion in special cases like peace, deciding on wars or treaties, defense, protecting India from enemies, well-being of the Indian Empire, any big issue affecting India. Example, if his council voted no to war, but Cornwallis thought war was necessary for India's safety, he could still say yes and go ahead. Check on corruption, wealth declaration. Every British officer working for the East India Company in India had to report their property, wealth, money, land, etc., both in India and Britain. They had to give this information within 2 months of joining their job. If they lied or hid money, they could be given severe punishment. Why? Because many company officers had earlier become very corrupt and made huge private fortunes by cheating Indians. Britain wanted to stop this. Example, like a teacher asking every student to show all their money openly so that no one secretly steals from the class fund. 4. What did not change? The basic system of government in India made earlier by Pitt's India Act, 1784, did not change. This act was just a small amendment change, mainly to give Cornwallis more powers and to control corruption. The big system continued until 1858, when the British Crown finally took over from the East India Company. Big picture, why it matters. This act shows that the British wanted 1. A powerful single leader in India, not a weak one controlled by too many voices. 2. Less corruption among company officials. 3. Smooth functioning of both administration and army under one man, Cornwallis. Cornwallis later became famous for his reforms in administration, army, and land revenue system. These reforms shaped British India for the next many years. Super short summary. The Amending Act of 1786 gave Lord Cornwallis both political and military power, allowed him to overrule his council in important matters, forced officers to declare their wealth to stop corruption, and kept Pitt's India Act system mostly unchanged until 1858. Would you like me to now make a visual story-style explanation, like a comic or real-life scenario, so that you can see this act happening in your mind like a movie? Charter Act, 1793. Great, deep, simple summary. I'll give you a clear, detailed summary in plain English. Short sentences, simple words, and real examples so it sticks. 1.1. What the Act did. Main points. The East India Company's trade monopoly was continued for 20 more years, so no other British trader could trade freely with India until 1813. The Governor-General, the top boss in Bengal, was given strong control over the presidencies of Bombay and Madras. The Governor-General's right to overrule his council in urgent matters was confirmed and made to apply over the governors of Bombay and Madras too. The company could license private people and its own employees to do country, privilege, trade inside Asia. This opened the door to regular shipments of opium from India to China. After paying its costs, salaries, interest, dividends, expenses from Indian collections, the company had to send £500,000, £5 lakh, every year from the leftover money to the British government. The Act reorganized courts. It clarified which court handles which case. It separated revenue work from judicial work. Tax collectors would no longer act as judges in revenue cases. The old Mal Adalats revenue courts disappeared. Salaries of the Board of Control members and other paid staff were to be charged to the company, paid from company Indian money. Number 2, why these points matter. Simple reasons. Monopoly continued. Company kept huge profits and trade control. Stronger governor general, more central rule, clearer orders across India. Override power, faster action in war or crisis, but power was concentrated. Country trade licenses allowed private profit-making and led to big opium exports to China. 500,000 pounds yearly, a steady money flow from India to Britain, part of what later people call home charges. Court changes, fairer legal process, no judge who also collects taxes. Salaries from company funds, India paid more of the cost of running the empire. 3. Short consequences. What happened next? Centralization. Calcutta, Bengal, became clearly the center of power. Bombay and Madras lost real independence. Faster decisions. In emergencies, the governor-general could act without long debates. Opium trade grew. The license rule helped create regular opium shipments to China, a major historical development. Financial drain. India's money helped pay Britain's costs. This created long-term economic pressure and resentment. Legal reform. Separating revenue and justice reduced conflict of interest, but also removed local, familiar forums, mal adalats, that peasants used. Company loyalty problems. Allowing company employees private trade created conflicts of interest and chances for corruption. Number 4. Big picture. One sentence. The Charter Act of 1793 kept the company's trade monopoly, strengthened the Governor-General's centralized power, allowed licensed private trading, which fueled the opium trade, reorganized courts for fairer justice, and made India pay a fixed annual sum to Britain. Number 5. Easy memory hooks. 20 years, one boss, country trade, 500 cow. 20. Monopoly till 1813. One boss, GG strong over presidencies. Country trade, licenses opium, 500 CAG annual payment to Britain. Centralize, legalize, monetize. Centralize power, legalize private country trade, monetize India, pay Britain. Number 6. Tiny simple example to make it real. Think of a company with 3 branches. Head office, Calcutta, branch A, Bombay, and branch B, Madras. The owner says, head office is the boss of the branches. Head office can decide quickly if there is an emergency. The head office can also lend special permission to a few workers to sell goods outside the normal business, country trade. After paying salaries and bills, the branch must send a fixed sum every year to the owner in London. That is what the Charter Act did for British India. 7. Tiny timeline to place it. 1784, Pitt's India Act, stronger London supervision. 1786, Cornwallis given special powers, override council. 1793, Charter Act, makes many of Cornwallis's powers general. Extends trade monopoly till 1813, other changes described above. 1813, monopoly largely ends, except later reforms follow. If you want, I can now make a 1-page revision sheet, short bullets for quick memorizing, or a 5-question quiz to test, or a comic-style story to remember the act like a short movie. Which would you like next?